Ranked as a top-tier employment attorney. Featured on CNN Money. Numerous awards for Best Employment Law.
Okay.
A fierce advocate fighting for your legal needs.
Welcome to Legal Views with your host, Attorney Sheila R. Stewart.
Thank you so much for joining us on today. You are in for a treat. We have the one and only Dr. Argatha Gilmore that is with us on today, all the way from Tallahassee, Florida. And I am your host, Attorney Sheila R. Stewart, with Legal Views with Attorney Sheila R. Stewart. We are broadcasting here from Clayton, Missouri. Thank you for tuning in. And we are also streaming live on Facebook, YouTube 365, and Spotify. We are so excited to have you as our guests and our viewers on today. Hello, Dr. Gilmore. How are you on today?
I'm doing fantastic, Attorney Stewart. What a wonderful opportunity to share with you today. It's great to be with you.
Well, it is great to have you. You are an inspiration to women across the globe, not across the United States, but your footprint has been felt throughout the United States. And we want to thank you and salute you for your service, because your service is just tremendous. So I want to give you some background on this great person that we have on our show today, because she will be able to give us very excellent insight into many of the problems that are taking place today as it relates to the no-knock warrants, as it relates to defunding the police, which I have some thoughts on. I think that's one of the most craziest ideas, especially for urban corridors, but we'll get to that later. But she has some excellent ideas, some information. And then lastly, her ministry extends throughout the country and throughout the United States. She has done great works in Johannesburg, South Africa. So this is an individual that you can get some inspiration from and some ideals from on how to succeed and how to improve your goals. So let me give you a little bit about Dr. Gilmore, who she is and what she has done. She was raised in Wabasso, Florida, right outside the city limits of Vero Beach. I'm not sure if I said Wabasso right, but that's the best I can do for now.
That's fine.
She is happily married to her loving husband, Brother Thomas Franklin Gilmore. She holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in criminology from Florida State University and a Master's in Public Administration from Florida A&M University. She is a graduate of Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government, State, and Local Programs. This is an executive programs for top-tier professionals. So she was admitted into this program, and she was also selected to attend the FBI National Academy, where she graduated in the 212th session. Dr. Gilmore attained her doctorate degree in strategic leadership and with a foresight in management, leadership foresight management. Dr. Gilmore is now employed with the Tallahassee Police Department, where she was promoted through the ranks and became the first African American chief of police, captain in 1999. She retired after 25 years of service. We just lost Dr. Gilmore, but we're going to bring her right back in. So don't worry. She's back. Don't worry. Where she was the first African-American female captain in 1999. She retired after 25 years of service. She continued her career in law enforcement and became the first female and the first African-American to hold the office of chief of police for Lake City in September of 2009. Dr. Gilmore has successfully led the police department to achieve the professional status of an accredited law enforcement agency. She is the past president of the Third Circuit Police Chief Association and a district director of the Florida Police Chief Association. Welcome, Dr. Gilmore. And I am going to have you to talk about the position that you currently hold and how you're working as the first female individual to hold this office. I just think what you have done is tremendous. You deserve applause.
Thank you.
This virtual world, just give her an applause. Thank you for being with us. Can you share with us what inspired you to go into a law enforcement career? Because it's very much so male dominated. And so what were the influences that caused you to take this pathway?
Well, that's a very good question, Attorney Stewart. Many factors went into making a decision to go into law enforcement. Of course, it's very lofty to say to be a part of a change, but I would have to have full disclosure here. I was one of the ones who loved to read Nancy Drew mystery books, the Hardy Boys mystery books, and all of those things fascinated me. So I really wanted to be the FBI agent, to be the best investigator in the FBI world. However, during that time, law enforcement experience was needed. So I went to Tallahassee Police Department to get boots on the ground experience as a police officer. But I would tell you, Attorney Stewart, when I got there, I found out that I really enjoyed what I was doing, and that was helping people. And I found my niche. And wearing the uniform meant a lot to me, and then to go into the community and make a difference. And so here I am over 30 years later, still enjoying wearing the uniform. And it was all about being a policy-making, decision-making executive, that when things happen in the law enforcement world, I would have a hand in ensuring that policies, procedures, and decision-making as it relates to how we handle our community, I was part of that. And so that a whole lot of factors went in, but I think that's a very good abbreviated version. I'm here now 30 years later, over 30 years really, still doing what I love to do, and that is putting on the uniform and going into the community to make a difference. It really is about service. It really is about service before self.
That's amazing. And you have served so many individuals. Tell us about the position that you currently have as the assistant sheriff there in Tallahassee, Florida.
Thank you. And I'm so excited really to be back home. As you already mentioned, I retired from Tallahassee Police Department. And so 12 years later, I'm here now back in Tallahassee, serving as an assistant to a constitutional officer, sheriff who was elected by the people, and to one day receive a phone call to simply say, would you consider coming and being an assistant sheriff, serving with me, the citizens of Tallahassee, Florida? What an honor it is. And so now I'm being an assistant sheriff here in the city of Lake City, my home, where I've been over 40 plus so years. It's just an honor that we have now not only a small section of a city, but it's the entire city and the county where we serve. And it's just an honor. And being an assistant sheriff, I have so many opportunities to make impact and influence, and that is over uniform patrol, over SWAT, over aviation. We have helicopters, special investigations. We just do a lot with youth services. Just a whole lot of myriad of things that I do as an assistant sheriff. Of course, I've been here now since November, so I'm still in the learning curve, a lot about the agency, but I would tell you it is all about the operation and how we serve the citizens of Tallahassee. It's mammoth, Attorney Stewart. I would have to tell you it is a lot. But to whom much is given, much is required. And so I'm very happy to be serving this capacity as one of the assistant sheriffs here in the city of Tallahassee. And to have a sheriff who is really all about people. It's great. I love it.
So you work with SWAT as well? Are you over SWAT?
SWAT comes under me. As a matter of fact, it's interesting you asked the question. Just Thursday, I went out for my first time to meet with my SWAT team, who serves under my purview, and I got an opportunity to see all of them in doing their training. And I also got a chance to use one of those long rifles where you shoot 2 miles away. And they, come on, Sister Sheriff, you can do this. And so I was out with them in training, watching how they breach doors, how they make entries. It was just phenomenal. We have a phenomenal team here at Leon County Sheriff's Office. So yes, I do. That is under my purview. And I told them, as we finished with my show and being with them on Thursday, I told them I feel very comfortable having this awesome team. We have a lot of the tools that when there's a high risk situation that we're going to respond, and we're going to respond well because we do have our leaders and our team leaders on SWAT who are well trained, who we certainly have the tools, and they're going to make things happen for our citizens. It was wonderful.
That is amazing. My theme this year for Legal Views is manifesting faith. And I believe that the theme, the purpose that I was getting to with that theme is that you can use your faith to produce the things that you need. You can manifest it. You can call it forth and bring it forth. And when I see that an individual such as yourself has been elevated, and you are over SWAT, and you are directing law enforcement at large capacities, that to me, that's manifestation of faith, how God is putting the right people in place to set up the levels of protection that we need. A person that has the insight to see further than what's on paper. That person that can see further than that report that has been brought into them. And I believe that your position was divinely ordained from God to provide that level of safety and protection because you have that insight and you're involved in ministry. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that, rather?
What a phenomenal theme that you have, Attorney Stewart, manifesting faith. Because I will tell you, I was thinking about this today, especially in this industry where I am and that I've been doing over 30 years. It's a calling. There's no other way to see what we do, especially when we've been doing it for a while, and to still enjoying what it stands for and what it means. It is all about how our faith is manifested. And I will say that in several ways. In several ways, like number one is this. Mm-hmm. And that is my faith and whom I believe and what I believe has allowed me an opportunity to be where I am today. Secondly, sometimes when we are faced with issues and concerns and problems, it takes a faith in God that things will happen and change because we believe in this God who's able to do anything. And so I know I'm not invincible. I know that sometimes that we can't solve all of the world's problems, but my faith is manifested in my service, and my faith is manifested in whom I believe. So, because I do believe in miracles, I do believe in miracles. And at the same time, I believe that what I believe needs to be demonstrated in what I do when I put on this uniform. So I appreciate so much. Your theme is so relevant for this 21st century, for the social injustices that we're dealing with the problems we're dealing with in the family and in the home, and in those leaders where we believe should be doing the right thing. But the faith of whom and what I believe got to be manifested when we're strategically placed where we're supposed to be. Now, Attorney Stewart, I can just take off with this manifestation of faith, so you don't have to reel me in, because I will tell you your theme is so powerful. And to your viewers that are out there, the manifest faith and what we believe got to be demonstrated and where God has strategically placed us. And so although I wear a gun on my side just about every day, I can't pull that gun out every day to deal with problems. But my faith and what I believe and in whom I believe takes me to those places where I need to be and how I can make things happen through the faith of where I am. Thank you so much for your theme.
Well, thank you. Thank you, I'm sorry, Mother Mary Sims, for tuning in with us. We salute you, Mother Sims, our president of our executive board. And we also recognize Mother Barbara McCoo Lewis, who we're going to speak on a little later in the show, for all of the phenomenal ideas that she has come forth with to help life to become more meaningful and successful for women. And we thank God for the work that she has done and all of the great women that are working with her to manifest this vision that she has. Now, Dr. Gilmore, one of the things that I find so phenomenal about you, when I first saw you, you were at the Women's Convention, you were presenting this check. And when they read your background, I said, I was like, is that correct? I was like, I have to meet this lady. Is this accurate? This woman is a chief of police. And I think it is so awesome for you to be where you are at this time, because there are so many leaders, young leaders, some young African-American leaders of color, and they're pushing this whole narrative of defund the police. Okay. That is a tragedy on its face, okay? If someone steals your car, the first person you're going to call is the police. Somebody breaks in your house, the first person you're going to call is the police. If someone assaults you or rob you, you're going to call the police. And I believe that communities of color, Black and brown communities, are some of the most vulnerable communities there are. But yet this narrative, this rhetoric, is so profound in these communities. And I think it is not wisdom. There's no wisdom in it. And having a person like you that people can see, the spirituality, the intellect, the education, the vision, the success, the track record. I want people to understand that these are some of the officers that are working, not just in Florida, but around the country to keep you safe. All of the officers are not racist guys out there ready to shoot somebody. Okay, we have people like that out there, but we have people like Dr. Gilmore, more people like Dr. Gilmore. How do you know that, Attorney Stewart? Have you done a study? Well, I can tell you, because the society has not been overturned with a mob. We don't have mobs that's in control. So that's how we know, okay? That's one of the ways we know. Dr. Gilmore, what are your thoughts on this whole ideology of defund the police and all of this type of rhetoric that we're hearing today?
Thank you so much for your insight in defunding the police. And I appreciate your views on the concept and the thoughts of defunding the police. And first of all, when we hear the term or hear the cry of defunding the police, I would like to have in my mind, it's just another way of our people crying out for help and believing that defunding the police is the way to do it. When we look at the tragedy of our persons in law enforcement wearing the uniform commit crimes, it's a problem, right? Mm-hmm. It's a problem. But I want to suggest to you and to your viewers that 2% or maybe 2 to 5% is, I would say, would be the amount of persons who wear the uniform create a problem for the rest of us who are trying to make the difference. So that 2% to 5% of those who wear the uniform who make real bad, I shouldn't say mistakes, commit crimes while wearing the uniform, mm-hmm. that I know we're going to talk about a little later on. And it's this, now you have this broad brush of defunding the police. Well, I mm-hmm. want to pose a question. There are many problems and issues that our physicians make, right? And right. Sometimes problems where people lose their life because of a misdiagnosis, and sometimes leaving instruments and things in the bodies of our loved ones. But we don't hear the term defund the hospital and stop those who are doing things to save lives. So that same principle, I understand defunding the police is to channel the funds somewhere else and not create this ideology that we don't need law and order. We do need law and order. Let me take you to the prisons. Let me take you to the jails and introduce you to some of those persons who have created horrible crimes in our community and in our families. So the funding of police is not the way, but how do we use the funds that we have to deal with mental issues, to deal with our youth, and to deal with those social problems that we're having in our community? That's what we need to make sure that we have happen, that we cause people in other professions and industries to work and to do. It is not in the funding of police. As a matter of fact, we need more funds because, Attorney Stewart, we now have law enforcement who don't want to do the job. It is a thankless job. It is a profession where you don't get paid enough money to put on the uniform and become a target simply because you're sitting in the car and somebody walks by and don't like the police, and now they have a family and we have to go to the homes and tell that family someone killed your loved one simply because they were sitting in the car and they're a police officer. So the funding of police is not the way. We do understand their social issues. We do understand that we're all things to all people. We get it. But what it means, Attorney Stewart, is this. We have got to work together in this industry that we call law enforcement. We have got to have the churches to come together. We have got to have the community activists come and sit at the table with us and strategize how we make things happen with the funds that we do have. More than anything, Attorney Stewart, what we really need is this. How can we get more funds to law enforcement to deal with mental issues? Right now in our agency, we have a mental health unit. The only thing that they do is when the calls come in that we have of someone who is acting out or committing a crime, we immediately have to go in and assess the situation. So what do? We have clinical people riding with us in the car so that when we go to a mental health issue, we have the services there. What the other that we just standing up, and I'm over this one as well. I'm over the mental health unit. We're now getting ready to call what we call a host unit. That's dealing with the homeless situations in our community. I'm having a strategy meeting with all the community providers on Tuesday, bringing them together and say, how do we strategize? Because we cannot, Attorney Stewart, arrest our way out of the homeless situation. So it's not defunding the police. It is how do we work together to make sure that we're dealing with the social issues in our community. Affordable housing, we're trying to help with that. When I was a police chief in Lake City, I started a summer youth employment program because I knew during the summer, our young people get antsy and they might start things. But I said, listen, let's put money in their pocket to help with their family. And not only that, it builds a career. As you can see, I'm very passionate, Attorney Stewart, about what we do. So I'm going to close it with that. Defunding the police is not the way. It is, we need people to step up to the plate and join us in this profession, and let's work together to make a difference.
I think your passion is needed. I think we have many people that are in professions today and they totally, completely lack passion and advocacy for individuals. So we need that. And more importantly, we need to come together with a collective board, like you stated.
Yes.
The church cannot continue to turn their back on this fundamental problem. The church has to become a catalyst of change. And it has to open up their doors and say, we're going to bring somebody in from housing, bring somebody in from the youth programs, bring somebody in for mental health, bring somebody in for job training and development, and bring other community leaders together to come to the table to develop strategic plans that work, that you have a milestone for outcomes, a milestone that you can measure and say that this took place in our community. Oftentimes what we do, we blame the entire problem on the police and we absolve all of the other entities. We blame the entire problem on the schools and the teachers, and we absolve all of the other entities. We can't continue to do that because this problem is in our face, right? The homeless problem is in our face. The mental health issue is in our face. And you are absolutely correct. The police need more funding for training, for development, to how to answer a call for mental health problems versus showing up at the house, a person is mentally ill and then he or she ends up dead, okay? Because the training is not there, the understanding is not there. And so all of these issues, we have to bring them forth and talk about them and not just wait until a George Floyd situation takes place and then everything becomes explosive. We all know what happened with George Floyd. He was murdered actually on film by a police officer who did it with arrogance and a disregard, a reckless disregard for human life. So that level of turpitude that you saw with that officer, like you said, that's like 2% of all. You don't have 50. I don't believe it anyway. I haven't done a study, but I don't believe you have 50% of police officers riding around that would do what this guy did to George Floyd. I personally don't have that type of thinking, that all of these officers are to that level. I think it's a percentage, and we have to flush those individuals out and not allow them to hide behind the officers that are doing a great job like yourself.
Attorney Stewart, you are so spot on. We in law enforcement, especially those of us who are at the executive level, and I would even venture to say those who are on the ground level, the boots on the ground, do, and hear me well, do not want those persons who wear the uniform and who are committing crimes, who have no regard for life of our citizens. We don't want them in the uniform. We now have on our way even placing in law, and a lot of us have it in our policies and procedures, a duty to intervene, a duty to say something and do something when they see a fellow law enforcement officer acting or committing any kind of crime or violating policy. They have a duty to say something, and not only say something, they have a duty to intervene. Someone should have stepped in and stopped the travesty that was happening with George Floyd. I'm saying to you, the majority of us as law enforcement officers do not want that behavior, do not want that tarnishing our badge, because we really believe in doing what is right.
And
so
I appreciate that. It does tarnish the badge when you have when individuals like yourself, you have a pristine record, you have a pristine career, and you have a pristine reputation, and you've worked hard for that. You don't want this 2% or whatever the percentage is of individuals to just have a reckless disregard for the community to tarnish the reputation of individuals that are working hard, and then individuals that are doing their job, like you stated, sitting in the car, having coffee, and getting ready to go to maybe a domestic violence, and before they can even pull off, somebody come up on the side and shoot that individual and murder that individual. That is horrible. And we cannot justify that type of behavior. That is inhumane, and it is horrible. And we cannot have some type of mentality where we say, well, they got what they deserved. No, that's somebody that has nothing to do with it. And I kind of look at it like this, that many individuals, African American men, I'm gonna use African American men. When you look at the prisons today, they are full of African American men. Most prisons are not full of white men, they're full of African American men. And they build prisons with putting African American men in there with that mentality. But that doesn't mean all African American men are dangerous.
Yes, correct.
And all African American men are not dangerous. So I just kind of want people to think more critically about these issues. I know we've seen a lot. We've been upset, Breonna Taylor, and the list goes on and on. I know I've been upset, but we want to look at it from a more analytical point of view to make sure that we're not creating a rhetoric that may cause us more harm in the future.
Correct. And I think having conversations like we're having today, Attorney Stewart, with the law enforcement and other disciplines of how we work together to make a difference. And the only way that is going to happen, and that is with having this kind of discussion. And when we walk away from the discussion, we have an actionable plan of putting it into place. Because let me just give a personal note here. And that personal note is that we have a lot of service providers out there that funding is being given to. But what we want to see is the results. Mm-hmm. The results of what are you doing with the other disciplines to help us to make a difference in the root causes. I heard someone say poverty is the mother of crime. Whether that's true or not, but it's certainly worth something to look into. When we have a joblessness, when we have a work shortage, when we have all of those other kind of social factors that's going on, we got to look at what is the root causes. We have to go into the homes to find out what are the root causes for all of this. So I can go on and on with that, but thank you so much again. I just so appreciate this forum, this platform, to have a real talk about the issues that we're having with the law enforcement and really what is the real deal of how we get to solving and resolving the issues that we're facing right now.
Thank you. I think poverty plays a formidable role. You know, it is the foundation that festers criminal activity, the lack of, the lack of money, the lack of food, the lack of housing, the lack of nice things, living in environments that are dangerous. How do I get out of this situation? My parents are poor. My dad is incarcerated. My mom is incarcerated. My grandmother is raising me, and she has limited funding. And I believe it opens a door for gang activities. It opens a door for people to figure out, how can I get ahead quickly? How do I get out of my situation quickly? Because my situation is bad. It's really bad. And I need to get out of it as quick as I can. And so I will turn to a life of crime. I used to run a summer program years ago, and for underprivileged youth. And one of the guys said to me, he told me that he had $200,000 buried in his backyard, and he was going to get out of the program because he would never make the kind of money that he was making, like the little jobs we were giving him. He would be better off going out on the corner selling drugs again. He said he was trying to go straight, but he wasn't making any money. I said, well, you sold those drugs back then because you didn't have anything. You're on the streets. You was raising yourself on the streets, and you were selling drugs. I said, but if you go back now, you may end up dead. You may end up dead if you go back out there. So what kind of programs do you think we can create for youth to get them out of that cycle. Do you have any suggestions for activities? I mean, the programs that we ran for youth years ago, they were making like $10 an hour. That was probably back in 2006, 2005. And lots of those kids that were in that program, many of those kids were just, they were at the bottom of the barrel in terms of opportunities. So what are you seeing in your community that you think can help our young people?
I believe there are a lot of programs that exist that have good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Their goals and objectives are good. I just believe there needs to be an inspection of the goals and objectives and the results of them. Because I really do believe that when we have persons who stand up programs that are supposed to help our young people, I'm just wondering how they lost their way. And I'm just being very real here tonight. Have they lost their way in ensuring that what I want to do to help the young people, am I doing? So listen, that means let's go back to the table, because we do. We have the Police Explorers. We have Back on Track. Just Friday, yesterday, Attorney Stewart, my chief came in to report to me that a 12-year-old stabbed a 16-year-old. That happened yesterday. Get the age. A 7th grader stabbed a 9th grader. 12-year-old stabbed a 16-year-old. That 12-year-old not only stabbed that 16-year-old, but ran to the house to get the knife and to come back to commit the crime. Now, we call that, Attorney Stewart. That has to be premeditated, right?
Absolutely, it is.
Enough to think that I'm going to go home to get the knife and then to come back and to stab the 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I found very interesting about that, I'm going to get back to the programs, because I think we do need programs, positive programs. But here we have a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old encounter.
Look like we're having a few technical difficulties with Dr. Gilmore, but we're trusting that she's going to buffer back in a few seconds. Let's see what happens. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, we lost you for a few seconds, but I was trusting that you would come back in.
We love technology, but then we lost. Okay, are we back?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you all so much for still staying on. We love in technology, and we're going to work with technology today. The 12-year-old and 16-year-old, as I pick up from there, and I will make this part as short as well. Here we have an opportunity to intervene. That 12-year-old, of course, has been arrested. But what was interesting about that, Attorney Stewart, is this. When they shared that information with me, I remember a bulletin that was put out a few days ago with that name. The father of that 12-year-old was wanted for homicide. And they couldn't believe that I remembered it, right? Mm-hmm. But I said, that name is familiar to me. They went back and looked, and here we have now a 12-year-old arrested, his father arrested for homicide.
Okay, we're losing Dr. Gilmore again, but we're hopeful that she's going to pop back in. Okay, there you go.
All right. Okay. And I appreciate all of the listeners who are staying on with us, Attorney Stewart. We appreciate your patience as well as we go through this technical pauses. Let's call that these technical pauses.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have this encounter. So my question to those who have services for youth purposes, what do we do with that 12-year-old at this point who committed a crime, right? where is it that we missed something, that this 12-year-old had a father who was on a bulletin of wanted, and now he has committed a crime as well.
Right.
So for us as law enforcement, we do have, as I mentioned to you, Explorers Program, Back on Track, and all those other kinds of issues that we deal with. But I have to say emphatically, where are the youth services that can step in right now, right, in this situation of a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old? There are so many programs out there, Attorney Stewart, but I have to say to you tonight, where are you? We need you to step up to the plate. We need you to reevaluate, and we need to come with the law enforcement wherever you are in this country and say, I want to reevaluate my programs that we have with youth, and how do we work together? It is not a hue and cry for defunding the police, but it should be a hue and cry. We got to get together and make things happen for our young people. And as I mentioned to one provider, I said to them, it's time for you to go into the house to that grandmother who's trying to raise these children alone and start there with some value systems, because there's a struggle going on and we need help.
Okay, we're losing Dr. Gilmore again. Just bear with us. We're hopeful rather, that she will pop back in. I want to take this time to acknowledge Pastor Blake, Latanya Blake, Sheila Atkins, Lena Porter, and so many of our guests, Pastor Diane, Marcus Jeter, and so many of our guests that are putting comments on the line tonight. Pastor Latanya Blake Allen, we appreciate you. You are doing an outstanding job in Los Angeles. We wanted to encourage you for the work that you are doing in Los Angeles. Keep the faith and keep going forward. So I just wanted to just acknowledge some of our guests. We have a lot of comments that's coming up, Dr. Gilmore, but we are so happy to see that you're back. And you were stating to evaluate your programs and to look at your outcomes. Can you hear me, Dr. Gilmore? Dr. Gilmore, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
I think I hear you, Attorney Stewart.
Yeah, we're having some problems there with Dr. Gilmore's live feed. Let's see if we can, hopefully we can get some stability here, get her back on the screen. I apologize. And thank you for your patience. Thank you so much for your patience. Dr. Gilmore, can you hear me now? I don't think she.
I'm not sure if you can hear me, Attorney Stewart.
I can hear you now.
It appears that I am in the studio.
Yeah, I can hear you now. It looks like you're freezing up a little bit, but we can hear you. Dr. Gilmore?
I can barely hear you.
Okay.
I don't see you, but I can barely hear you.
Okay. I think that's your StreamYard. StreamYard is an unforgiving software. You got to have a strong connection. If you don't have a strong connection, you get knocked off of StreamYard without that. So we will see if we can get her back in. And,
here we are.
Okay, here we are. Now I can hear you. Okay. So you were saying that the youth programs must be properly evaluated, and then we have to look at the outcomes. And we want these youth leaders to come forth with the programs and to let us know where they are and how they can come to the table to help us. Did I sum that up okay for you?
I cannot hear you well, Attorney.
Okay.
I think we're still talking about the youth.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I can barely understand what you're saying. This technical is causing some issues for us tonight. Thank you for your audience that's still with us.
Can you call on your phone? Can you call me on your phone and then listen to me?
Please call me. Please call
Okay,
me.
and then listen through your phone, and then we'll see if that helps.
Okay. Attorney Stewart?
Yes, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, good. Okay. So we're just trying to make the best of the situation here. You turn your volume down just a little. You just want to be able to hear me because I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Okay.
Okay. We good? Okay, there you go. Turn the camera off for a second. Okay, no words. Things happen. So let's look at the no-knock warrant situation. Okay, let's look at that. Amir Locke was a 22-year-old from Minneapolis, and he was fatally shot as he was sleeping at his cousin's house. And he had a gun under the blanket. The police came in, and I guess he was startled. He pulled the gun out. It was visible. Okay, it was visible. I don't know if he pulled it out or not, but it was visible. And the police officer shot and killed Amir Locke. And my thoughts, just to set the stage for what I think, and then you can jump in and share from a law enforcement point of view. Okay, we're losing Dr. Gilmore again. Okay, you can hear me. I think that no-knock warrants are unconstitutional, and I don't think no-knock warrants should be allowed. I know it's the issue of the surprise element that allows the individual to be caught off guard, or for the police officers to use the element maybe of surprise to get this culprit off the street. But the negligence that continues to occur with no-knock warrants outweigh the element of surprise, in my opinion. And I think no-knock warrants should be banned. So what are your thoughts on no-knock warrants?
I'm going to try to talk so that everyone can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're still getting some feedback. I'm getting feedback.
Mm-hmm. I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So Florida, I think, is one of the only two states in our country maybe that are banned that. And that started back in 1989 when we had.
You're buffering again. Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead. I can hear you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I hope your audience can hear as well. It is buffering back to come back on.
Mm-hmm.
Florida is one of there are two states, I believe, in the country who do not
that we banned that. That we do believe that there should be a knock and announce, however, under exigent circumstances, because as you've already mentioned, some of the cases and some of the incidents that knock and announce would have probably avoided a life being taken. There are exigent there are sometimes circumstances where the judge will rule before allowing that to happen with an arrest warrant or search warrant, and so we are in agreement in Florida, unless there's
that we're there, and there are circumstances that can cause harm to the officer, or evidence could very well be destroyed or tampered under those circumstances. But we're in agreement with you, Attorney Stewart, that we do believe that a person's home is their castle.
And they should be willing to respond to the presence of law enforcement at the time that we need to make contact. And so we're definitely in agreement with you, because we do believe that lives could have been saved in several other incidents that you've already mentioned.
Okay, well, that's great to hear about Florida and your stance on no knock warrants. And so that's my stance. I've never believed in no knock warrants because houses look alike, apartment buildings look alike, and it is so easy to end up at the wrong address and you're shooting like crazy. So I'm totally against the no knock warrants. I want to now, is there anything else you would like to share? Because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about ministry. We have a few minutes left. I wanted to talk to you about ministry. Is there anything else you would like to share about law enforcement before we move on to ministry? Can you hear me?
Attorney Sir, I apologize. I cannot hear you at all clearly, I should say. I hear you, but I don't hear your words.
Okay.
Can you ask the question again? I think I can hear you better now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm hearing intermittent in between. So let me try hard. If you could ask the question
No, you know
again.
what? You have done a phenomenal job. I don't want to just try to keep, pushing it, whatever is going on with the technology. I want to just thank you for coming on. And, we don't want to try to keep pushing you to hear, and the technology is not working well. She's on the phone for those. I'm not just talking in the air. She's on the phone. So if the technology isn't working, we can have you back. You know me, I will have you back and at another time. And you have done an outstanding job. There are some more things we wanted to talk about. We wanted to discuss the Hannah project. Okay. Okay. We wanted to. Okay. Yes, I definitely want to come back. I definitely want you to come back on. I think you've done an outstanding job. I think you are a trailblazer law enforcement officer. You need to be recognized and appreciated for what you have done. And it was nothing but the hand of God that has blessed you and raised you up at such a time as this to be an example throughout the United States. And we applaud you and we thank you for the work that you have done. And we want you to come back at another time and to be with us. Can you come back, Dr. Gilmore?
Absolutely. What an honor it is to be a part of this platform with you and raising the issues that you have. And I love having these kinds of real talk and real discussions about the circumstances, the incidents, and the social injustices in our country. I'd love to be back.
Well, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Legal Views with Sheila R. Stewart. And we will ask that you continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's doing great, very well. And we thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much and have a great evening. God bless you. God bless you.